one of the major branches of linguistics. Like other big ones are syntax, semantics, pragmatics, morphology, sort of linguistics, sociolinguistics. Like it's in that sort of level. This is a summary of basically the first 6 weeks of John Goldsmith's Intro Linguistics 2, which was awesome. Just as sort of an introductory example before I start explaining the theory behind anything, one of the like random observations that can kind of motivate the existence of phonology is the fact that top and top are it's if you don't pay attention to the sound, they sound like the same word. Top and top. It's the difference there is whether you aspirate the T, so the difference between t and t. So, whereas in a lot of other languages, that is a significant difference. Like in Chinese, there's a difference between ta and ta. So, the way that these things break down between languages is very small. Another brief sort of introductory note. In conventional understandings of how like the sounds of language work and how you use spoken language, it makes sense to represent things using letters or using just a sequence of symbols. Even in phonetics and phonology, that's used a lot because it's really easy to write. But it's not really like you can't actually do very much analytically if you sort of consider that to be the end-all be-all of how things work. Just because like the actual way in which you make sounds involves a whole bunch of different muscles which are controlled pretty much independently and will often be doing things independently that don't really overlap otherwise. So I'll start out with a very quick anatomy lesson of just like what your head looks like. Big empty space. Teeth. Hard palate. Soft palate. There's a flexible connection here. Then got your vocal folds here. This is your throat. This is your esophagus. This is your trachea. Something like that. One thing that's sort of hard to notice is that your tongue is really big. Like as well as sort of the taste receptors going back, just the tongue as a muscle is like a couple of inches tall at least. This is kind of misleading. There's this little fold which closes up when you swallow. So, how these things work in making sounds. They're got your lips. That should be pretty obvious. Like if you're making P or B sounds, they do things. Teeth. Your tongue interacts with your teeth for things like the. Your tongue moves all over the place, especially in vowels, where your tongue is. It's actually sort of three different variables, because the front of it moves independently from the root right around here, and the sides can go up and down to make these sounds. Whether or not this is open basically makes a difference of whether or not the sound is nasal, and that's significant. Stuff down here doesn't get used as much in English, but this.
So when you say open, that actually is a flap leading up to an opening into the empty space?
Yeah. I forget which sinuses, but these sinuses directly behind your nose are connected to your mouth. They drain into your mouth. That's sort of what happens if you have a runny nose. And yeah, that can be a resonant chamber. Also, for some sounds like an M, it's actually the main escape point of sound. It resonates through the nose and comes back to the nose. And And then probably the most important part is your vocal folds, your voice box. That's what generates the actual resonating frequency that is your voice. By what it is just it's two muscles that sort of open and close to make a larger or smaller opening. If they're completely open, you're breathing. If they're completely closed, you've made a that was not something to use very much in English. It's when you really abruptly cut off a syllable by basically just stopping your breath. And then anything between is going to produce sound. And the combination of how intensely that's closed and how much air you're pushing through it will be the frequency you're producing. So a sort of common analogy for this is it's a source and a filter. This produces the vibrations. All of these things change various properties of them. All right, a few places I can go from here. This talk is kind of complicated because it's a whole bunch of levels of analysis that are going on about the same things, and looking at it as a historical progress would just be unreasonably complicated because there have been about 14 revolutions in each of these fields. So I'm just going to have to sort of go through things in the order that they make sense to go through. You can break down sounds pretty neatly you can break down sounds into consonants and vowels, not breaking them. It's a really useful distinction that is also very fuzzy. More reasonably, you can break them down into 6 or 7 or 8 categories with vowels at the bottom and the most consonant-y consonants at the top. The axis is basically volume. Vowels are loud, consonants are soft. And so those are stops. Let's write it out first. So, stops are basically the absence of sound and the little bit of sound that comes out as you're stopping the sound. So, like a bilabial stop is p or b. That's when you stop air from exiting your mouth using your lips. An affricate is when you stop sound, but in the process create a friction noise in your mouth as that's happening. So ch is an easy example of that. Fricatives, you do only the friction part, f, v. Nasals, you block most or all the sound coming out of your mouth, run through your nose, n, m, m. Liquids are, L is definitely a liquid. R is really weird. In English and a number of other languages, the thing that you would typically interpret as R can actually be one of a whole bunch of sounds that, if you really listen to them independently, have almost nothing to do with each other. But one of the more common forms of R in English is this. But like the French, one of the French R's is has absolutely nothing to do with that. So glides are more common ones are y and w. Like some of the ways you can pronounce y and w. Liquids can occasionally be syllabic, which means they replace a vowel in the syllable, even if they aren't quite a vowel. First example I made with Chinese is sh. There is no actual vowel there. It's just SHR, but the R you can sort of make as a loud sound. Glides that were pretty close to being vowels. They're just you're gliding your tongue. You're moving what the vowel is, and so it doesn't really stay on anything. It doesn't sort of make a consistent sound. And then vowels are just when you put your tongue somewhere, make your vocal cords make a sound and open your mouth. So as little interference as possible with the sound. So kind of got vowels here and the definite consonants here, and then these things are in between.